The French Revolution, A History by Thomas Carlyle, Volume 3, The Guillotine, Book 3, The Girondins, Chapter 1, Cause and Effect. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain, read by Peter Dann. Book 3, Chapter 1, Cause and Effect. This huge insurrectionary movement, which we liken to a breaking out of Tophet and the Abyss, has swept away royalty, aristocracy, and a king's life. The question is, what will it next do? How will it henceforth shape itself? Settle down into a reign of law and liberty according as the habits, persuasions, and endeavours of the educated, moneyed, respectable class prescribe? That is to say, the volcanic lava flood, bursting up in the manner described, will explode and flow according to Girondin formula and pre-established rule of philosophy? If so, for our Girondin friends it will be well. Meanwhile, were not the prophecy rather that as no external force, royal or other, now remains which could control this movement, the movement will follow a course of its own, probably a very original one? Further, that whatsoever man or men can best interpret the inward tendencies it has, and give them voice and activity, will obtain the lead of it? For the rest, that as a thing without order, a thing proceeding from beyond and beneath the region of order, it must work and welter, not as a regularity, but as a chaos, destructive and self-destructive, always till something that has order arise, strong enough to bind it into subjection again? Which something, we may further conjecture, will not be a formula, with philosophical propositions and forensic eloquence, but a reality, probably with a sword in its hand. As for the Girondin formula of a respectable republic for the middle classes, all manner of aristocracies being now sufficiently demolished, there seems little reason to expect that the business will stop there. Liberty, equality, fraternity, these are the words, enunciative and prophetic. Republic for the respectable washed middle classes, how can that be the fulfilment thereof? Hunger and nakedness and nightmare oppression lying heavy on 25 million hearts, this not the wounded vanities or contradicted philosophies of philosophical advocates, rich shopkeepers, rural noblesse, was the prime mover in the French Revolution, as the like will be in all such revolutions in all countries. Feudal fleur-de-lis had become an insupportably bad marching banner, and needed to be torn and trampled. But money-bag of mammon, for that in these times is what the respectable republic for the middle classes will signify, is a still worse while it lasts. Properly, indeed, it is the worst and basest of all banners and symbols of dominion among men, and indeed is possible only in a time of general atheism and unbelief in anything save in brute force and sensualism, pride of birth, pride of office, any known kind of pride being a degree better than purse pride. Freedom, equality, brotherhood, not in the money bag, but far elsewhere will sansculottism seek these things. We say, therefore, that an insurrectionary France, loose of control from without, destitute of supreme order from within, will form one of the most tumultuous activities ever seen on this earth, such as no Girondin formula can regulate. An immeasurable force, made up of forces manifold, heterogeneous, compatible and incompatible. In plainer words, this France must needs split into parties, each of which seeking to make itself good, contradiction, exasperation will arise, and parties on parties find that they cannot work together, cannot exist together. As for the number of parties, there will, strictly counting, be as many parties as there are opinions. According to which rule, in this national convention itself, to say nothing of France generally, the number of parties ought to be 749, for every unit entertains his opinion. But now, as every unit has at once an individual nature, or necessity to follow his own road, and a gregarious nature, or necessity to see himself travelling by the side of others, what can there be but dissolutions, precipitations, endless turbulence of attracting and repelling, till once the master element get evolved and this wild alchemy arrange itself again? To the length of 749 parties, however, no nation was ever yet seen to go, nor indeed much beyond the length of 2 parties, 2 at a time. So invincible is man's tendency to unite with all the invincible divisiveness he has. 2 parties, we say, are the usual number at one time. Let these 2 fight it out, all minor shades of party rallying under the shade likest them. When the one has fought down the other, then it in its turn may divide, self-destructive, and so the process continue as far as needful. This is the way of revolutions, which spring up as the French one has done, when the so-called bonds of society snap asunder, and all laws that are not laws of nature become naught and formulas merely. But quitting these somewhat abstract considerations, let history note this concrete reality which the streets of Paris exhibit on Monday the 25th of February 1793. Long before daylight that morning these streets are noisy and angry. Petitioning enough there has been, a convention often solicited. It was but yesterday there came a deputation of washerwomen with petition, complaining that not so much as soap could be had, to say nothing of bread and condiments of bread. The cry of women round the salle de manège was heard plaintive, "Du pain et du savon," bread and soap. And now, from 6 o'clock this Monday morning, one perceives the bakers' queues unusually expanded, angrily agitating themselves. Not the baker alone, but 2 section commissioners to help him manage with difficulty the daily distribution of loaves. Soft-spoken, assiduous, in the early candlelight, are baker and commissioners, and yet the pale, chill February sunrise discloses an unpromising scene. Indignant female patriots, partly supplied with bread, rush now to the shops, declaring that they will have groceries. Groceries enough, sugar barrels rolled forth into the street, patriot citoyennes weighing it out at a just rate of 11 a pound, likewise coffee chests, soap chests, nay, cinnamon and cloves chests, with aqua vitae and other forms of alcohol, at a just rate which some do not pay, the pale-faced grocer silently wringing his hands. What help? The distributive citoyennes are of violent speech and gesture, their long Eumenides hair hanging out of curl, nay, in their girdles pistols are seen sticking. Some, it is even said, have beards, male patriots in petticoats and mob cap. Thus in the streets of Lombards, in the streets of Five Diamonds, streets of Pulleys, in most streets of Paris does it effervesce the livelong day. No municipality, no Mayor Pache, though he was war minister lately, sends military against it, or aught against it, but persuasive eloquence, till 7 at night or later. On Monday gone 5 weeks, which was the 21st of January, we saw Paris, beheading its king, stand silent like a petrified city of enchantment. And now on this Monday it is so noisy, selling sugar. Cities, especially cities in revolution, are subject to these alternations, the secret courses of civic business and existence effervescing and efflorescing in this manner as a concrete phenomenon to the eye. Of which phenomenon, when secret existence, becoming public, effloresces on the street, the philosophical cause and effect is not so easy to find. What, for example, may be the accurate philosophical meaning and meanings of this sale of sugar? These things that have become visible in the street of Pulleys and over Paris, whence are they, we say, and whither? That Pitt has a hand in it, the gold of Pitt, so much to all reasonable patriot men may seem clear. But then through what agents of Pitt? Vaillet, apostle of liberty, was discerned again of late with his pike and his red nightcap. Deputy Marat published in his journal this very day, complaining of the bitter scarcity and sufferings of the people, till he seemed to get wroth. If your rights of man were anything but a piece of written paper, the plunder of a few shops and a forestaller or 2 hung up at the door lintels would put an end to such things. Are not these, say the Girondins, pregnant indications? Pitt has bribed the anarchists. Marat is the agent of Pitt, hence this sale of sugar. To the mother society, again, it is clear that the scarcity is factitious, is the work of Girondins and such like, a set of men partly sold to Pitt, sold wholly to their own ambitions, and hard-hearted pedantries who will not fix the grain prices but prate pedantically of free trade, wishing to starve Paris into violence and embroil it with the departments. Hence this sale of sugar. And alas, if to these two notabilities of a phenomenon, and such theories of a phenomenon, we add this third notability, that the French nation has believed for several years now in the possibility, nay, certainty, and near advent of a universal millennium, or reign of freedom, equality, fraternity, wherein man should be the brother of man, and sorrow and sin flee away. Not bread to eat, not soap to wash with, and the reign of perfect felicity ready to arrive, due always since the Bastille fell. How did our hearts burn within us at that feast of pikes, when brother flung himself on brother's bosom, and in sunny jubilee 25 millions burst forth into sound and cannon smoke. Bright was our hope then as sunlight. Red angry is our hope grown now as consuming fire. But, oh heavens, what enchantment is it, or devilish legerdemain of such effect, that perfect felicity, always within arm's length, could never be laid hold of, but only in her stead controversy and scarcity. This set of traitors after that set. Tremble, ye traitors, dread a people which calls itself patient, long-suffering, but which cannot always submit to have its pocket picked in this way of a millennium. Yes, reader, here is a miracle. Out of that putrescent rubbish of scepticism, sensualism, sentimentalism, hollow Machiavellianism, such a faith has verily risen, flaming in the heart of a people. A whole people, awakening as it were to consciousness in deep misery, believes that it is within reach of a fraternal heaven on earth. With longing arms it struggles to embrace the unspeakable, cannot embrace it owing to certain causes. Seldom do we find that a whole people can be said to have any faith at all, except in things which it can eat and handle. Whensoever it gets any faith, its history becomes spirit-stirring, noteworthy. But since the time when steel Europe shook itself simultaneously at the word of Hermit Peter and rushed towards the sepulchre where God had lain, there was no universal impulse of faith that one could note. Since Protestantism went silent, no Luther's voice, no Ziska's drum any longer proclaiming that God's truth was not the devil's lie, and the last of the Cameronians, Renwick was the name of him, honour to the name of the brave, sank, shot on the castle hill of Edinburgh, there was no partial impulse of faith among nations. Till now, behold, once more, this French nation believes. Herein, we say, in that astonishing faith of theirs lies the miracle. It is a faith, undoubtedly, of the more prodigious sort even among faiths, and will embody itself in prodigies. It is the soul of that world prodigy named French Revolution, whereat the world still gazes and shudders. But for the rest, let no man ask history to explain by cause and effect how the business proceeded henceforth. This battle of Mountain and Gironde and what follows is the battle of fanaticisms and miracles, unsuitable for cause and effect. The sound of it to the mind is as a hubbub of voices in distraction. Little of articulate is to be gathered by long listening and studying, only battle tumult, shouts of triumph, shrieks of despair. The Mountain has left no memoirs. The Girondins have left memoirs which are too often little other than long-drawn interjections of "Woe is me" and "Cursed be ye." So soon as history can philosophically delineate the conflagration of a kindled fire-ship, she may try this other task. Here lay the bitumen stratum, there the brimstone one, so ran the vein of gunpowder, of nitre, terebinth, and foul grease. This, were she inquisitive enough, history might partly know. But how they acted and reacted below decks, one fire stratum playing into the other, by its nature and the art of man, now when all hand ran raging and the flames lashed high over shrouds and topmast, this let not history attempt. The fireship is old France, and old France form of life, her creed a generation of men. Wild are their cries and their ragings there, like spirits tormented in that flame. But on the whole are they not gone, O reader? Their fireship and they, frightening the world, have sailed away, its flames and its thunders quite away into the deep of time. One thing, therefore, history will do: pity them all, for it went hard with them all. Not even the sea-green incorruptible but shall have some pity, some human love, though it takes an effort. And now, so much once thoroughly attained, the rest will become easier. To the eye of equal brotherly pity, innumerable perversions dissipate themselves, exaggerations and execrations fall off of their own accord. Standing wistfully on the safe shore, we will look and see what is of interest to us, what is adapted to us. End of Book 3, Chapter 1. The French Revolution, A History, by Thomas Carlyle, Volume 3, The Guillotine, Book 3, The Girondins, Chapter 2, Calotic and Sans-Calotic. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain, read by Peter Dann. Book 3, Chapter 2, Calotic and Sans-Calotic. Gironde and Mountain are now in full quarrel. Their mutual rage, says Toulongion, is growing a pale rage. Curious, lamentable, all these men have the word republic on their lips. In the heart of every one of them is a passionate wish for something which he calls republic. Yet see their death quarrel. So, however, are men made. Creatures who live in confusion, who, once thrown together, can readily fall into that confusion of confusions which quarrel is, simply because their confusions differ from one another, still more because they seem to differ. Men's words are a poor exponent of their thought. Nay, their thought itself is a poor exponent of the inward unnamed mystery, wherefrom both thought and action have their birth. No man can explain himself, can get himself explained. Men see not one another, but distorted phantasms which they call one another, which they hate and go to battle with. For all battle is well said to be misunderstanding. But indeed that similitude of the fireship of our poor French brethren, so fiery themselves, working also in an element of fire, was not insignificant. Consider it well, there is a shade of the truth in it. For a man once committed headlong to republican or any other transcendentalism, and fighting and fanaticizing amid a nation of his like, becomes, as it were, enveloped in an ambient atmosphere of transcendentalism and delirium. His individual self is lost in something that is not himself, but foreign, though inseparable from him. Strange to think of, the man's cloak still seems to hold the same man, and yet the man is not there, his volition is not there, nor the source of what he will do and devise. Instead of the man and his volition, there is a piece of fanaticism and fatalism incarnated in the shape of him. He, the hapless incarnated fanaticism, goes his road. No man can help him, he himself least of all. It is a wonderful tragical predicament, such as human languages, unused to deal with these things, being contrived for the uses of common life, struggles to shadow out in figures. The ambient element of material fire is not wilder than this of fanaticism, nor, though visible to the eye, is it more real. Volition bursts forth involuntarily, rapt along. The movement of free human minds becomes a raging tornado of fatalism, blind as the winds, and Mountain and Gironde, when they recover themselves, are alike astounded to see where it has flung and dropped them. To such height of miracle can men work on men, the conscious and the unconscious blended inscrutably in this our inscrutable life, endless necessity environing free will. The weapons of the Girondins are political philosophy, respectability, and eloquence. Eloquence, or call it rhetoric, really of a superior order. Vergniaud, for instance, turns a period as sweetly as any man of that generation. The weapons of the mountain are those of mere nature, audacity and impetuosity, which may become ferocity, as of men complete in their determination, in their conviction, nay, of men in some cases who as Septemberers must either prevail or perish. The ground to be fought for is popularity. Further, ye may either seek popularity with the friends of freedom and order, or with the friends of freedom simple. To seek it with both has unhappily become impossible. With the former sort, and generally with the authorities of the departments and such as read parliamentary debates and are of respectability and of a peace-loving, moneyed nature, the Girondins carry it. With the extreme patriot again, with the indigent millions, especially with the population of Paris, who do not read so much as hear and see, the Girondins altogether lose it, and the mountain carries it. Egoism, not meanness of mind, is not wanting on either side. Surely not on the Girondin side, where in fact the instinct of self-preservation, too prominently unfolded by circumstances, cuts almost a sorry figure, where also a certain finesse, to the length even of shuffling and shamming, now and then shows itself. They are men skilful in advocate fence. They have been called the Jesuits of the Revolution, but that is too hard a name. It must be owned likewise that this rude blustering mountain has a sense in it of what the Revolution means, which these eloquent Girondins are totally void of. Was the Revolution made and fought for against the world these 4 weary years, that a formula might be substantiated, that society might become methodic, demonstrable by logic, and the old noblesse with their pretensions vanish? Or ought it not withal to bring some glimmering of light and alleviation to the 25 millions, who sat in darkness heavy laden, till they rose with pikes in their hands? At least and lowest, one would think, it should bring them a proportion of bread to live on. There is in the mountain, here and there, in Marat people's friend, in the incorruptible Sea-Green himself, though otherwise so lean and formulary, a heartfelt knowledge of this latter fact, without which knowledge of all other knowledge here is naught, and the choicest forensic eloquence is as sounding brass and a tinkling cymbal. Most cold, on the other hand, most patronizing, unsubstantial, is the tone of the Girondins towards our poorer brethren, those brethren whom one often hears of under the collective name of the masses, as if they were not persons at all, but mounds of combustible explosive material for blowing down Bastille with. In very truth, a revolutionist of this kind, is he not a solecism? Disowned by nature and art, deserving only to be erased and disappear. Surely to our poorer brethren of Paris all this Girondin patronage sounds deadening and killing. If fine-spoken and incontrovertible in logic, then all the falser, all the hatefuller in fact. Nay, doubtless, pleading for popularity here among our poorer brethren of Paris, the Girondin has a hard game to play. If he gain the ear of the respectable at a distance, it is by insisting on September and such like. It is at the expense of this Paris where he dwells and perorates. Hard to perorate in such an auditory. Wherefore the question arises, could we not get ourselves out of this Paris? Twice or oftener such an attempt is made. If not we ourselves thinks good, then at least our suppléant might do it. For every deputy has his suppléant or substitute, who will take his place if need be. Might not these assemble, say, at Bourges, which is a quiet episcopal town, in quiet Berry, 40 good leagues off? In that case, what profit were it for the Paris sans-culottes to insult us, a suppléant sitting quiet in Bourges to whom we could run? Nay, even the primary electoral assemblies, thinks Gourdet, might be reconvoked, and a new convention got, with new orders from the sovereign people, and right glad were Lyon, were Bordeaux, Rouen, Marseille, as yet provincial towns, to welcome us in their turn and become a sort of capital towns, and teach these Parisians reason. fond schemes which all misgo. If decreed in heat of eloquent logic today, they are repealed by clamour and passionate wider considerations on the morrow. Will you, O Girondins, parcel us into separate republics then, like the Swiss, like your Americans, so that there be no metropolis or indivisible French nation any more? Your departmental guards seem to point that way. Federal Republic? Federalist? Men and knitting women repeat Federaliste with or without much dictionary meaning, but go on repeating it, as is usual in such cases, till the meaning of it becomes almost magical, fit to designate all mystery of iniquity, and Federalista has grown a word of exorcism and apage Satanas. But furthermore, consider what poisoning of public opinion in the departments by these Brisso, Gossas, Carita, Condorcet newspapers. And then also what counter-poisoning, still feller in quality, by a Père Duchesne of Hébert, brutalest newspaper yet published on earth, by a Rougif of Goufoy, by the incendiary Livres of Marat. More than once, on complaint given and effervescence rising, it is decreed that a man cannot both be legislator and editor, that he shall choose between the one function and the other. But this too, which indeed could help a little, is revoked or eluded, remains a pious wish mainly. Meanwhile, as to the sad fruit of such strife, behold, O ye national representatives, how between the friends of law and the friends of freedom everywhere mere heats and jealousies have arisen, fevering the whole republic. Department, provincial town is set against metropolis, rich against poor, calotic against sans-calotic, man against man. From the southern cities come addresses of an almost inculpatory character, for Paris has long suffered newspaper calumny. Bordeaux demands a reign of law and respectability, meaning Girondism, with emphasis. With emphasis, Marseille demands the like. Nay, from Marseille there come two addresses, one Girondin, one Jacobin sans-calotic. Hot Rebecca, sick of this convention work, has given place to his substitute and gone home, where also with such jarrings there is work to be sick of. Lyon, a place of capitalists and aristocrats, is in still worse state, almost in revolt. Chalier, the Jacobin town councillor, has got too literally to daggers drawn with Nièvre Cole, the Moderatin mayor, one of your moderate, perhaps aristocrat royalists or federalist mayors. Chalier, who pilgrimed to Paris to behold Marat and the mountain, has verily kindled himself at their sacred urn, for on the 6th of February last, history or rumour has seen him haranguing his Lyon Jacobin in a quite transcendental manner, with a drawn dagger in his hand, recommending, they say, sheer September methods, patience being worn out, and that the Jacobin brethren should impromptu work the guillotine themselves. One sees him still in engravings, mounted on a table, foot advanced, body contorted, a bald, rude, slope-browed, infuriated visage of the canine species, the eyes starting from their sockets, in his puissant right hand the brandished dagger, or horse-pistol as some give it, other dog visages kindling under him, a man not likely to end well. However, the guillotine was not got together impromptu that day on the Pont Saint-Clair or elsewhere, but indeed continued lying rusty in its loft. Nièvre Chole with military went about, rumbling cannon in the most confused manner, and the 900 prisoners received no hurt. So distracted is Lyon grown with its cannon rumbling. Convention commissioners must be sent thither forthwith, if even they can appease it and keep the guillotine in its loft. Consider finally if, on all these mad jarrings of the southern cities and of France generally, a traitorous crypto-royalist class is not looking and watching, ready to strike in at the right season. Neither is there bread, neither is there soap. See the patriot women selling out sugar at a just rate of 22 sous per pound. Citizen representatives, it were verily well that your quarrels finished and the reign of perfect felicity began. End of Book 3, Chapter 2. The French Revolution, A History, by Thomas Carlyle, Volume 3, The Guillotine. Book 3, The Girondins. Chapter 3, Growing Shrill. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain, read by Peter Dann. Book 3, Chapter 3, Growing Shrill. On the whole, one cannot say that the Girondins are wanting to themselves so far as goodwill might go. They prick assiduously into the sore places of the mountain, from principle and also from Jesuitism. Besides September, of which there is now little to be made except effervescence, we discern two sore places where the mountain often suffers, Marat and Orléans-à-Galate. Squalid Marat, for his own sake and for the mountain's, is assaulted ever and anon, held up to France as a squalid, bloodthirsty portent, inciting to the pillage of shops, of whom let the mountain have the credit. The mountain murmurs ill at ease. This maximum of patriotism, how shall they either own him or disown him? As for Marat personally, he with his fixed idea remains invulnerable to such things. Nay, the people's friend is very evidently rising in importance, as his befriended people rises. No shrieks now when he goes to speak, occasional applauses rather, furtherance which breeds confidence. The day when the Girondins proposed to decree him accused, décréter d'accusation as they phrase it, for that February paragraph of hanging up a forestaller or two at the door-lintels, Marat proposes to have them decreed insane, and descending the tribune steps is heard to articulate these most unsenatorial ejaculations: "Les cochons, les imbéciles!" Pigs, idiots. Oftentimes he croaks harsh sarcasm, having really a rough rasping tongue, and a very deep fund of contempt for fine outsides, and once or twice he even laughs, nay, explodes into laughter, rire éclat, at the gentilities and superfine airs of these Girondin men of statesmanship, with their pedantries, plausibilities, pusillanimities. "These 2 years," says he, "you have been whining about attacks and plots and dangers from Paris, and you have not a scratch to show for yourselves." Danton gruffly rebukes him from time to time. A maximum of patriotism, whom one can neither own nor disown. But the second sore place of the mountain is this anomalous Monseigneur Equality Prince d'Orléans. "Behold these men," says the Gironde, "with a whilom Bourbon prince among them. They are creatures of the d'Orléans faction. They will have Philippe made king. One king no sooner guillotined than another made in his stead." Girondins have moved, Buzot moved long ago, from principle and also from Jesuitism, that the whole race of Bourbon should be marched forth from the soil of France, this Prince Egalite to bring up the rear. Motions which might produce some effect on the public, which the mountain, ill at ease, knows not what to do with. And poor Orléans-Égalité himself, for one begins to pity even him, what does he do with them? The disowned of all parties, the rejected and foolishly bedrifted hither and thither, to what corner of nature can he now drift with advantage? Feasible hope remains not for him. Unfeasible hope, in pallid doubtful glimmers, there may still come, bewildering, not cheering or illuminating, from the Dumouriez quarter. And how, if not the time-wasted Orléans-Égalité, then perhaps the young unworn Chartres-Égalité might rise to be a kind of king? Sheltered, if shelter it be, in the clefts of the mountain, poor Égalité will wait. One refuge in Jacobinism, one in Dumouriez and counter-revolution. Are there not 2 chances? However, the look of him, Dame Genlis says, is grown gloomy, sad to see. Sillery also, the Genlis' husband, who hovers about the mountain, not on it, is in a bad way. Dame Genlis has come to Rancy out of England and Bury St. Edmunds in these days, being summoned by Égalité with her young charge, Mademoiselle Égalité, so that Mademoiselle might not be counted among emigrants and hardly dealt with. But it proves a ravelled business. Genlis and charge find that they must retire to the Netherlands, must wait on the frontiers for a week or 2, till Monseigneur, by Jacobin help, get it wound up. Next morning, says Dame Genlis, Monseigneur, gloomier than ever, gave me his arm to lead me to the carriage. I was greatly troubled. Mademoiselle burst into tears. Her father was pale and trembling. After I had got seated, he stood immovable at the carriage door with his eyes fixed on me. His mournful and painful look seemed to implore pity. Adieu, madame, said he. The altered sound of his voice completely overcame me. Not able to utter a word, I held out my hand. He grasped it close, then turning and advancing sharply towards the postilions, he gave them a sign, and we rolled away. Nor are peacemakers wanting, of whom likewise we mention two, one fast on the crown of the mountain, the other not yet alighted anywhere, Danton and Barrère. Ingenious Barrère, old constituent and editor from the slopes of the Pyrenees, is one of the usefulest men of this convention in his way. Truth may lie on both sides, on either side, or on neither side. My friends, ye must give and take, for the rest success to the winning side. This is the motto of Barrère. Ingenious, almost genial, quick-sighted, supple, graceful, a man that will prosper. Scarcely Belial in the assembled pandemonium was plausibler to ear and eye. An indispensable man. In the great art of varnish he may be said to seek his fellow. Has there an explosion arisen, as many do arise, a confusion, unsightliness, which no tongue can speak of, nor eye look on? Give it to Barrère. Barrère shall be committee reporter of it. You shall see it transmute itself into a regularity, into the very beauty and improvement that was needed. Without one such man, we say, how were this convention bested? Call him not, as exaggerative Mercier does, the greatest liar in France. Nay, it may be argued that there is not truth enough in him to make a real lie of. Call him, with Burke, Anacreon of the guillotine, and a man serviceable to this convention. The other peacemaker whom we name is Danton. Peace, oh peace with one another, cries Danton often enough. Are we not alone against the world, a little band of brothers? Broad Danton is loved by all the mountain, but they think him too easy-tempered, deficient in suspicion. He has stood between Dumouriez and much censure, anxious not to exasperate our only general. In the shrill tumult, Danton's strong voice reverberates for union and pacification. Meetings there are, dinings with the Girondins. It is so pressingly essential that there be union. But the Girondins are haughty and respectable. This Titan Danton is not a man of formulas, and there rests on him a shadow of September. Your Girondins have no confidence in me. This is the answer a conciliatory Maillon gets from him. To all the arguments and pleadings this conciliatory Maillon can bring, the repeated answer is, Ils n'ont point de confiance. The tumult will get even shriller. Rage is growing pale. In fact, what a pang is it to the heart of a Girondin, this first withering probability that the despicable, unphilosophic, anarchic mountain, after all, may triumph. Brutal Septemberers, a fifth-floor Tallien, a Robespierre without an idea in his head, as Condorcet says, or a feeling in his heart, and yet we, the flower of France, cannot stand against them. Behold, the sceptre departs from us and goes to them. Eloquence, philosophism, respectability avail not. Against stupidity the very gods fight to no purpose. Mit der Dummheit kämpfen Gotte selbst vergebens. Shrill are the plaints of Louvet, his thin existence all acidified into rage and preternatural insight of suspicion. Wroth is young Barbaroux, wroth and scornful. Silent like a queen with an aspic on her bosom sits the wife of Roland. Roland's accounts never yet got audited, his name become a byword. Such is the fortune of war, especially of revolution. The great gulf of Tophet and 10th of August opened itself at the magic of your eloquent voice, and lo now it will not close at your voice. It is a dangerous thing, such magic. The magicians Famulus got hold of the forbidden book and summoned a goblin. "Plate deal, what is your will?" said the goblin. The famulus, somewhat struck, bade him fetch water. The swift goblin fetched it, pail in each hand, but lo, would not cease fetching it. Desperate, the famulus shrieks at him, smites at him, cuts him in two. Lo, 2 goblin water carriers ply, and the house will be swum away in Deucalion deluges. End of Book 3, Chapter 3. The French Revolution, A History, by Thomas Carlyle, Volume 3, The Guillotine, Book 3, The Girondins, Chapter 4, Fatherland in Danger. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Peter Dann. Book 3, Chapter 4, Fatherland in Danger. Or rather, we will say, this senatorial war might have lasted long, and party tugging and throttling with party might have suppressed and smothered one another in the ordinary bloodless parliamentary way, on one condition, that France had been at least able to exist all the while. But this sovereign people has a digestive faculty and cannot do without bread. Also, we are at war and must have victory, at war with Europe, with fate and famine, and behold, in the spring of the year, all victory deserts us. Dumouriez had his outposts stretched as far as Aix-la-Chapelle, and the beautifulest plan for pouncing on Holland by stratagem, flat-bottomed boats and rapid intrepidity, wherein too he had prospered so far, but unhappily could prosper no further. Aix-la-Chapelle is lost. Maastricht will not surrender to mere smoke and noise. The flat-bottomed boats must launch themselves again and return the way they came. Steady now, ye rapidly intrepid men, retreat with firmness, Parthian-like. Alas, were it General Miranda's fault, were it the War Minister's fault, or were it Dumouriez's own fault and that of fortune, enough there is nothing for it but retreat. Well, if it be not even flight, for already terror-stricken cohorts and stragglers pour off, not waiting for order, flow disastrous, as many as 10,000 of them, without halt till they see France again. Nay, worse, Dumouriez himself is perhaps secretly turning traitor. Very sharp is the tone in which he writes to our committees. Commissioners and Jacobin pillagers have done such incalculable mischief. Hasenfrat sends neither cartridges nor clothing. Shoes we have, deceptively sold with wood and pasteboard. Nothing, in short, is right. Danton and Lacroix, when it was that they were commissioners, would needs join Belgium to France, of which Dumouriez might have made the prettiest little duchy for his own secret behoof. With all these things the general is wroth, and writes to us in a sharp tone. Who knows what this hot little general is meditating? Dumouriez, Duke of Belgium, or Brabant, or say Egalite, the younger King of France. There were an end for our revolution. Committee of Defence gazes and shakes its head. Who except Danton, defective in suspicion, could still struggle to be of hope? And General Custine is rolling back from the Rhine country. Conquered Mentz will be reconquered, the Prussians gathering round to bombard it with shot and shell. Mentz may resist, Commissioner Merlin, the Thionville, making sallies at the head of the besieged, resist to the death, but not longer than that. How sad a reverse for Mentz! Brave Foster, brave looks, planted liberty trees amid sigh-rahing music in the snow-slush of last winter there, and made Jacobin societies, and got the territory incorporated with France. They came hither to Paris as deputies or delegates, and have their 18 francs a day. But see, before once the liberty tree is got rightly in leaf, Mentz is changing into an explosive crater, vomiting fire, be vomited with fire. Neither of these men shall again see Mentz. They have come hither only to die. Foster has been round the globe. He saw Cook perish under Auihi clubs. But like this Paris he has yet seen or suffered nothing. Poverty escorts him. From home there can nothing come except Job's news. The 18 daily francs, which we here as deputy or delegate with difficulty touch, are in paper assignats and sink fast in value. Poverty, disappointment, inaction, obloquy, the brave heart slowly breaking. Such is Foster's lot. For the rest, Demoiselle Théroigne smiles on you in the soirees, a beautiful brown-locked face of an exalted temper, and contrives to keep her carriage. Prussian Trenck, the poor subterranean baron, jargons and jangles in an unmelodious manner. Thomas Paine's face is red-pustuled, but the eyes uncommonly bright. Convention deputies ask you to dinner, very courteous, and we all play at plum-sack. It is the explosion and new creation of a world, says Foster, and the actors in it such small, mean objects, buzzing round one like a handful of flies. Likewise there is war with Spain. Spain will advance through the gorges of the Pyrenees, rustling with Bourbon banners, jingling with artillery and menace. And England has donned the red coat, and marches with Royal Highness of York, whom some once spake of inviting to be our king. Change that humour now, and ever more changing, till no hatefuller thing walk this earth than a denizen of that tyrannous island, and Pitt be declared and decreed with effervescence l'ennemi du genre humain, the enemy of mankind. And very singular to say, you make an order that no soldier of liberty give quarter to an Englishman. Which order, however, the soldier of liberty does but partially obey. We will take no prisoners then, say the soldiers of liberty. They shall all be deserters that we take. It is a frantic order, and attended with inconvenience, for surely if you give no quarter, the plain issue is that you will get none, and so the business becomes as broad as it was long. Our recruitment of 300,000 men, which was the decreed force for this year, is like to have work enough laid to its hand. So many enemies come wending on, penetrating through throats of mountains, steering over the salt sea, towards all points of our territory, rattling chains at us. Nay, worst of all, there is an enemy within our own territory itself. In the early days of March the Nantes post-bags do not arrive. There arrive only instead of them conjecture, apprehension, bodeful wind of rumour. The bodefullest proves true. Those fanatic peoples of La Vendée will no longer keep under. Their fire of insurrection, heretofore dissipated with difficulty, blazes out anew after the king's death as a wide conflagration, not riot but civil war. Your Catellino, your Stofflet, Charrettes are other men than was thought. Behold how their peasants in mere russet and hodden, with their rude arms, rude array, with their fanatic Gaelic frenzy and wild yelling battle cry of God and the King, dash at us like a dark whirlwind, and blow the best disciplined nationals we can get into panic and sauve-qui-peut. Field after field is theirs, one sees not where it will end. Commandant Santerre may be sent thither, but with none effect. He might as well have returned and brewed beer. It has become peremptorily necessary that a national convention cease arguing and begin acting. Yield one party of you to the other, and do it swiftly. No theoretic outlook is here, but the close certainty of ruin. The very day that is passing over must be provided for. It was Friday the 8th of March when this Job's post from Dumouriez, thickly preceded and escorted by so many other Job's posts, reached the National Convention. Blank enough are most faces. Little will it avail whether our Septemberers be punished or go unpunished if Pitt and Coburg are coming in, with one punishment for us all. Nothing now between Paris itself and the tyrants but a doubtful Dumouriez, and hosts in loose-flowing, loud retreat. Danton the Titan rises in this hour, as always in the hour of need. Great is his voice, reverberating from the domes. Citizens representatives, shall we not in such crisis of fate lay aside discords? Reputation, oh, what is the reputation of this man or of that? Que mon nom soit flétri, que la France soit libre. Let my name be blighted, let France be free. It is necessary now again that France rise in swift vengeance, with her million right hands, with her heart as of one man. Instantaneous recruitment in Paris. Let every section of Paris furnish its thousands, every section of France. 96 commissioners of us, 2 for each section of the 48, must go forthwith and tell Paris what the country needs of her. Let 80 more of us be sent post-haste over France to spread the fire-cross, to call forth the might of men. Let the 80 also be on the road before this sitting rise. Let them go and think what their errand is. Speedy camp of 50,000 between Paris and the north frontier, for Paris will pour forth her volunteers. Shoulder to shoulder, one strong, universal, death-defiant rising and rushing, we shall hurl back these sons of night yet again, and France, in spite of the world, be free. So sounds the Titan's voice. Into all section houses, into all French hearts. Sections sit in permanence for recruitment, enrolment that very night. Convention commissioners on swift heels are carrying the fire-cross from town to town till all France blaze. And so there is flag of fatherland in danger waving from the town hall, black flag from the top of Notre Dame Cathedral. There is proclamation, hot eloquence. Paris rushing out once again to strike its enemies down. That in such circumstances Paris was in no mild humour can be conjectured. Agitated streets, still more agitated round the Salle de Manège. Feuillant's terrace crowds itself with angry citizens, angrier citizenesses. Violet perambulates with portable chair, ejaculations of no measured kind as to perfidious fine-spoken hommes d'etat, friends of Dumouriez, secret friends of Pitt and Coburg, burst from the hearts and lips of men. To fight the enemy, yes, and even to freeze him with terror, glacé de froid, but first to have domestic traitors punished. Who are they that, carping and quarrelling in their Jesuitic most moderate way, seek to shackle the patriotic movement, that divide France against Paris and poison public opinion in the departments, that when we ask for bread and a maximum fixed price, treat us with lectures on free trade in grains? Can the human stomach satisfy itself with lectures on free trade? And are we to fight the Austrians in a moderate manner or in an immoderate? This convention must be purged. Set up a swift tribunal for traitors, a maximum for grains. Thus speak with energy the patriot volunteers as they defile through the convention hall, just on the wing to the frontiers, perorating in that heroical Cambyses vein of theirs, beshouted by the galleries and mountain, bemurmured by the right side and plain. Nor are prodigies wanting. Lo, while a captain of the section Poissonniere perorates with vehemence about Dumouriez, Maximum, and crypto-royalist traitors, and his troop beat chorus with him, waving their banner overhead, the eye of a deputy discerns in this same banner that the cravats or streamers of it have royal fleur-de-lis. The section captain shrieks, his troops shriek, horror-struck, and trample the banner underfoot, seemingly the work of some crypto-royalist plotter. Most probable, or perhaps at bottom only the old banner of the section manufactured prior to the 10th of August, when such streamers were according to rule. History, looking over the Girondin memoirs, anxious to disentangle the truth of them from the hysterics, finds these days of March, especially this Sunday, the 10th of March, play a great part. Plots, a plot for murdering the Girondin deputies, anarchists and secret royalists plotting in hellish concert for that end, the far greatest part of which is hysterics. What we do find indisputable is that Louvet and certain Girondins were apprehensive they might be murdered on Saturday, and did not go to the evening sitting, but held council with one another, each inciting his fellow to do something resolute and end these anarchists, to which, however, Pétion, opening the window and finding the night very wet, answered only, "Ils ne feront rien," and composedly resumed his violin, says Louvet, thereby with soft Lydian tweedledeeing to wrap himself against eating cares. Also that Louvet felt especially liable to being killed, that several Girondins went abroad to seek beds, liable to being killed, but were not. Further, that, in very truth, journalist Deputy Gaussat, poisoner of the departments, he and his printer had their houses broken into by a tumult of patriots, among whom red-capped Varlet, American Fournier, loomed forth in the darkness of the rain and riot, had their wives put in fear, their presses, types, and circumjacent equipment beaten to ruin, no mayor intervening in time. Corsart himself escaping, pistol in hand, along the coping of the back wall. Further, that Sunday, the morrow, was not a work-day, and the streets were more agitated than ever. Is it a new September, then, that these anarchists intend? Finally, that no September came, and also that hysterics, not unnaturally, had reached almost their acme. Vergniaud denounces and deplores in sweetly turned periods. Section Bon Conseil, good counsel so named, not Mauvais Conseil or ill counsel as it once was, does a far notabler thing. Demands that Vergniaud, Brissot, Gourdet, and other denunciatory fine-spoken Girondins, to the number of 22, be put under arrest. Section Good Counsel, so named ever since the 10th of August, is sharply rebuked, like a section of ill counsel, but its word is spoken, and will not fall to the ground. In fact, one thing strikes us in these poor Girondins, their fatal shortness of vision, nay, fatal poorness of character, for that is the root of it. They are as strangers to the people they would govern, to the thing they have come to work in. Formulas, philosophies, respectabilities, what has been written in books and admitted by the cultivated classes, this inadequate scheme of nature's working is all that nature, let her work as she will, can reveal to these men. So they perorate and speculate and call on the friends of law, when the question is not law or no law, but life or no life. Pedants of the revolution, if not Jesuits of it. Their formalism is great, great also is their egoism. France rising to fight Austria has been raised only by plot of the 10th of March to kill 22 of them. This revolution prodigy, unfolding itself into terrific stature and articulation by its own laws and natures, not by the laws of formula, has become unintelligible, incredible as an impossibility, the waste chaos of a dream. A republic founded on what they call the virtues, on what we call the decencies and respectabilities, this they will have, and nothing but this. Whatsoever other republic, nature, and reality send, shall be considered as not sent, as a kind of nightmare vision, and thing non-extant, disowned by the laws of nature and of formula. Alas, dim for the best eyes is this reality, and as for these men, they will not look at it with eyes at all, but only through faceted spectacles of pedantry, wounded vanity, which yield the most portentous, fallacious spectrum. Carping and complaining forever of plots and anarchy, they will do one thing, prove to demonstration that the reality will not translate into their formula, that they and their formula are incompatible with the reality, and in its dark wrath the reality will extinguish it, and them. What a man kens, he cans. But the beginning of a man's doom is that vision be withdrawn from him, that he see not the reality, but a false spectrum of the reality, and following that, step darkly, with more or less velocity, downwards to the utter dark, to ruin, which is the great sea of darkness, whither all falsehoods, winding or direct, continually flow. This 10th of March we may mark as an epoch in the Girondin destinies. The rage so exasperated itself, the misconception so darkened itself. Many desert the sittings, many come to them armed. An honourable deputy setting out after breakfast must now, besides taking his notes, see whether his priming is in order. Meanwhile, with Dumouriez in Belgium it fares ever worse. Were it again General Miranda's fault or some other's fault, there is no doubt whatever but the Battle of Nervinden on the 18th of March is lost, and our rapid retreat has become a far too rapid one. Victorious Coburg, with his Austrian prickers, hangs like a dark cloud on the rear of us. Dumouriez never off horseback night or day, engagement every 3 hours, our whole discomfited host rolling rapidly inwards, full of rage, suspicion, and sauve-qui-peut. And then Dumouriez himself, what his intents may be. Wicked, seemingly, and not charitable. His dispatches to committee openly denounce a factious convention for the woes it has brought on France and him. And his speeches, for the general has no reticence, The execution of the tyrant this Dumouriez calls the murder of the king. Danton and Lacroix, flying thither as commissioners once more, return very doubtful. Even Danton now doubts. 3 Jacobin missionaries, Prolis, Dubuisson, Pereira, have flown forth, sped by a wakeful Mother Society. They are struck dumb to hear the general speak. The convention, according to this general, consists of 300 scoundrels and 400 imbeciles. France cannot do without a king. But we have executed the king. And what is it to me, hastily cries Dumouriez, a general of no reticence, whether the king's name be Ludovicus or Jacobus? Or Philippus, rejoins Proly, and hastens to report progress. Over the frontiers, such hope is there. End of Book 3, Chapter 4. The French Revolution, A History, by Thomas Carlyle, Volume 3, The Guillotine, Book 3, The Girondins, Chapter 5, Sans-Culottism Accoutred. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain, read by Peter Dann. Book 3, Chapter 5, Sans-Culottism Accoutred. Let us look, however, at the grand internal sans-culottism and revolution prodigy, whether it stirs and waxes. There and not elsewhere hope may still be for France. The revolution prodigy, as decree after decree issues from the mountain like creative fiats accordant with the nature of the thing, is shaping itself rapidly in these days into terrific stature and articulation, limb after limb. Last March, 1792, we saw all France flowing in blind terror, shutting town barriers, boiling pitch for brigands. Happier this March that it is a seeing terror, that a creative mountain exists which can say fiat. Recruitment proceeds with fierce celerity. Nevertheless, our volunteers hesitate to set out till treason be punished at home. They do not fly to the frontiers, but only fly hither and thither, demanding and denouncing. The mountain must speak new fiat and new fiats. And does it not speak such? Take as first example those comités révolutionnaires for the arrestment of persons suspect. Revolutionary committee of 12 chosen patriots sits in every township of France, examining the suspect, seeking arms, making domiciliary visits and arrestments, caring generally that the Republic suffer no detriment. Chosen by universal suffrage, each in its section, they are a kind of elixir of Jacobinism, some 44,000 of them awake and alive over France. In Paris and all towns, every house door must have the names of the inmates legibly printed on it, at a height not exceeding 5 feet from the ground. Every citizen must produce his certificatory carte de civisme, signed by section president. Every man be ready to give account of the faith that is in him. Persons suspect had as well depart this soil of liberty. And yet departure too is bad. All emigrants are declared traitors. Their property become national. They are dead in law, save indeed that, for our behoof, they shall live yet 50 years in law, and what heritages may fall to them in that time become national too. A mad vitality of Jacobinism, with 44,000 centres of activity, circulates through all fibres of France. Very notable also is the Tribunal Extraordinaire decreed by the Mountain, some Girondins dissenting. For surely such a court contradicts every formula, other Girondins assenting, nay, cooperating, for do not we all hate traitors, O ye people of Paris? Tribunal of the 17th in autumn last was swift, but this shall be swifter. 5 judges, a standing jury, which is named from Paris and the neighbourhood, that there be not delay in naming it. They are subject to no appeal, to hardly any law forms, but must get themselves convinced in all readiest ways, and for security are bound to vote audibly in the hearing of a Paris public. This is the Tribunal Extraordinaire, which in few months, getting into most lively action, shall be entitled Tribunal Revolutionnaire, as indeed it from the very first has entitled itself, with a Herman or a Dumas for Judge-President, with a Fouquier-Tinville for Attorney-General, and a jury of such as Citizen Leroy, who has surnamed himself 10 août, Leroy, August 10th. It will become the wonder of the world. Herein has Sansculottism fashioned for itself a sword of sharpness, a weapon magical, tempered in the Stygian hell waters. To the edge of it all armour and defence of strength or of cunning shall be soft. It shall mow down lives and brazen gates, and the waving of it shed terror through the souls of men. But speaking of an amorphous Sansculottism taking form, ought we not above all things to specify how the amorphous gets itself a head? Without metaphor, this revolution government continues hitherto in a very anarchic state. Executive Council of Ministers, 6 in number, there is, but they, especially since Roland's retreat, have hardly known whether they were ministers or not. Convention committees sit supreme over them, but then each committee as supreme as the others. Committee of 21, of Defence, of General Surety, simultaneous or successive for specific purposes. The Convention alone is all-powerful, especially if the Commune go with it, but is too numerous for an administrative body. Wherefore, in this perilous, quick-whirling condition of the Republic, before the end of March, we obtain our small Comité de Salut Public, as it were, for miscellaneous accidental purposes requiring dispatch, as it proves for a sort of universal supervision and universal subjection. They are to report weekly, these new committee men, but to deliberate in secret. Their number is 9, firm patriots all, Danton one of them, renewable every month, yet why not re-elect them if they turn out well? The flower of the matter is that they are but 9, that they sit in secret. An insignificant-looking thing at first, this committee, but with a principle of growth in it. Forwarded by fortune, by internal Jacobin energy, it will reduce all committees and the Convention itself to mute obedience, the 6 ministers to 6 assiduous clerks, and work its will on the earth and under heaven for a season. A committee of public salvation, whereat the world still shrieks and shudders. If we call that revolutionary tribunal a sword, which Sansculottism has provided for itself, then let us call the law of the maximum a provender scrip or haversack, wherein better or worse some ration of bread may be found. It is true, political economy, Girondin free trade, and all law of supply and demand are hereby hurled topsy-turvy, but what help? Patriotism must live. The cupidity of farmers seems to have no bowels. Wherefore this law of the maximum, fixing the highest price of grains, is with infinite effort got past, and shall gradually extend itself into a maximum for all manner of comestibles and commodities, with such scrambling and topsy-turvying as may be fancied. For now, if, for example, the farmer will not sell, the farmer shall be forced to sell. An accurate account of what grain he has shall be delivered in to the constituted authorities. Let him see that he say not too much, for in that case his rents, taxes, and contributions will rise proportionally. Let him see that he say not too little, for on or before a set day, we shall suppose in April, less than 1/3 of this declared quantity must remain in his barns, more than 2/3 of it must have been thrashed and sold. One can denounce him and raise penalties. By such inextricable overturning of all commercial relation will Sansculottism keep life in, since not otherwise. On the whole, as Camille Desmoulins says once, while the Sansculottes fight, the messieurs must pay. So they come impôts progressifs, ascending taxes, which consume with fast increasing voracity superfluous revenue of men. Beyond £50 a year you are not exempt. Rising into the hundreds, you bleed freely. Into the thousands and tens of thousands, you bleed gushing. Also there come requisitions. There comes forced loan of 1 milliard, some 50 million sterling, which of course they that have must lend. Unexampled enough, it has grown to be no country for the rich, this but a country for the poor. And then if one fly, what steads it? Dead in law, nay, kept alive 50 years yet for their accursed behoof. In this manner, therefore, it goes, topsy-turving, sa-erraring, and withal there is endless sale of emigrant national property, there is Cambon with endless cornucopia of assignats. The trade and finance of Sansculottism, and how with maximum and bakers' queues, with cupidity, hunger, denunciation, and paper money, it led its galvanic life, and began and ended, remains the most interesting of all chapters in political economy, still to be written. All which things are they not clean against formula? O Girondin friends, it is not a republic of the virtues we are getting, but only a republic of the strengths, virtuous and other. End of Book 3, Chapter 5. The French Revolution, A History, by Thomas Carlyle. Volume 3, The Guillotine. Book 3, The Girondins. Chapter 6, The Traitor. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Peter Dann. Book 3, Chapter 6, The Traitor. But Dumouriez, with his fugitive host, with his King Ludovicus or King Philippus? There lies the crisis. There hangs the question. Revolution prodigy or counter-revolution? One wide shriek covers that northeast region. Soldiers full of rage, suspicion and terror flock hither and thither. Dumouriez, the many-counselled, never off horseback, knows now no counsel that were not worse than none. The counsel, namely, of joining himself with Coburg, marching to Paris, extinguishing Jacobinism, and with some new King Ludovicus or King Philippus wresting the Constitution of 1791. Is wisdom quitting Dumouriez, the herald of fortune quitting him? Principle, faith political or other, beyond a certain faith of mess-rooms and honour of an officer, had him not to quit. At any rate, his quarters in the burg of Saint-Amand, his headquarters in the village of Saint-Amand-des-Bois, a short way off, have become a bedlam. National representatives, Jacobin missionaries are riding and running. Of the 3 towns, Lille, Valenciennes, and even Condé, which Dumouriez wanted to snatch for himself, not one can be snatched. Your captain is admitted, but the town gate is closed on him, and then the prison gate, and his men wander about the ramparts. Couriers gallop breathless. Men wait or seem waiting to assassinate, to be assassinated. Battalions nigh frantic with such suspicion and uncertainty, with Vive la République and Sauve qui peut rush this way and that. Ruin and desperation in the shape of Coburg lying entrenched close by. Dame Genlis and her fair Princess d'Orléans find this burg of Saint-Amand no fit place for them. Dumouriez's protection is grown worse than none. Tough Genlis, one of the toughest women, a woman as it were with 9 lives in her, whom nothing will beat, she packs her bandboxes clear for flight in a private manner. Her beloved princess she will leave here, with the Prince Chartres Égalité, her brother. In the cold grey of the April morning we find her accordingly established in her hired vehicle on the street of Saint-Amand, postilions just cracking their whips to go, when behold the young princely brother, struggling hitherward, hastily calling, bearing the princess in his arms. Hastily he has clutched the poor young lady up, in her very nightgown, nothing saved in her goods except the watch from the pillow. With brotherly despair he flings her in among the bandboxes, into Genlis's chaise, into Genlis's arms. Leave her not, in the name of mercy and heaven. A shrill scene, but a brief one. The postilions crack and go. Ah, whither? Through by-roads and broken hill passes, seeking their way with lanterns after nightfall, through perils and Coburg Austrians and suspicious French nationals, finally into Switzerland, safe though nigh moneyless. The brave young Égalité has a most wild morrow to look for, but now only himself to carry through it. For indeed over at that village named of the mud baths, Saint-Amand-des-Bois, matters are still worse. About 4 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon, the 2nd of April, 1793, 2 couriers come galloping as if for life. Mon Général! 4 national representatives, War Minister at their head, are posting hitherward from Valenciennes, are close at hand. With what intents one may guess. While the couriers are yet speaking, War Minister and national representatives, old Camus the archivist for chief speaker of them, arrive. Hardly has Mon Général had time to order out the Hussar Regiment de Bercheny than it take rank and wait nearby in case of accident. And so enter War Minister Bournonville with an embrace of friendship, for he is an old friend. Enter archivist Camus and the other 3, following him. They produce papers, invite the general to the bar of the convention, merely to give an explanation or 2. The general finds it unsuitable, not to say impossible, and that the service will suffer. Then comes reasoning, the voice of the old archivist getting loud. Vain to reason loud with this Dumouriez, he answers mere angry irreverences. And so, amid plumed staff officers, very gloomy-looking, in jeopardy and uncertainty, these poor national messengers debate and consult, retire and re-enter, for the space of some 2 hours, without effect. Whereupon archivist Camus, getting quite loud, proclaims in the name of the National Convention, for he has the power to do it, that General Dumouriez is arrested. "Will you obey the national mandate, General?" "Pas dans ce moment-ci." "Not at this particular moment," answers the general, also aloud, then glancing the other way, utters certain unknown vocables in a mandatory manner, seemingly a German word of command. Hussars clutch the 4 national representatives and Bournonville, the war minister, pack them out of the apartment, out of the village, over the lines to Coburg, in 2 chaises that very night, as hostages, prisoners, to lie long in Maastricht and Austrian strongholds. Iacta est alia. This night Dumouriez prints his proclamation. This night and the morrow the Dumouriez army, in such darkness visible and rage of semi-desperation as there is, shall meditate what the general is doing, what they themselves will do in it. Judge whether this Wednesday was of halcyon nature for anyone. But on the Thursday morning we discern Dumouriez with small escort, with Chartres, Égalité, and a few staff officers, ambling along the Condé highway. Perhaps they are for Condé, and trying to persuade the garrison there. At all events they are for an interview with Coburg, who waits in the woods by appointment in that quarter. Nigh the village of Dumay, 3 national battalions, a set of men always full of Jacobinism, sweep past us, marching rather swiftly, seemingly in mistake by a way we had not ordered. The general dismounts, steps into a cottage, a little from the wayside, will give them right order in writing. Hark! What strange growling is heard, what barkings are heard, loud yells of traitors, of arrest. The national battalions have wheeled round, are emitting shot. Mount Dumouriez and spring for life. Dumouriez and staff strike the spurs in deep, vault over ditches, into the fields, which prove to be morasses, sprawl and plunge for life, bewhistled with curses and lead. Sunk to the middle, with or without horses, several servants killed, they escape out of shot range to General Mack, the Austrian's quarters. Nay, they return on the morrow to Saint-Amand and faithful foreign Bercheny, but what boots it? The artillery has all revolted, is jingling off to Valenciennes. All have revolted, are revolting, except only foreign Bercheny, to the extent of some poor 1,500. None will follow Dumouriez against France, an indivisible republic. Dumouriez's occupation's gone. Such an instinct of Frenihood and Sansculottism dwells in these men. They will follow no Dumouriez, nor Lafayette, nor any mortal on such errand. Shriek may be of Sauve qui peut, but will also be of Vive la République. New national representatives arrive. New General Dampierre, soon killed in battle. New General Custine, the agitated hosts draw back to some camp of Famars, make head against Coburg as they can. And so Dumouriez is in the Austrian quarters. His drama ended in this rather sorry manner. a most shifty, wiry man, one of heaven's Swiss that wanted only work. 50 years of unnoticed toil and valour, 1 year of toil and valour not unnoticed, but seen of all countries and centuries, then 30 other years again unnoticed of memoir writing, English pension, scheming and projecting, to no purpose. Adieu, thou Swiss of heaven, worthy to have been something else. His staff go different ways. Brave young Egalite reaches Switzerland and the Genlis cottage with a strong crab-stick in his hand, a strong heart in his body. His princedom is now reduced to that. Egalite the father sat playing whist in his Palais Egalite at Paris on the 6th day of this same month of April, when a catchpole entered. Citoyen Egalite is wanted at the Convention Committee. Examination requiring arrestment, finally requiring imprisonment, transference to Marseille and the Castle of Yves. Orléans has sunk in the black waters. Palais Egalite, which was Palais Royal, is like to become Palais National. End of Book 3, Chapter 6. The French Revolution, A History by Thomas Carlyle, Volume 3, The Guillotine. Book 3, The Girondins. Chapter 7, In Fight. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Peter Dann. Book 3, Chapter 7, In Fight. Our republic by paper decree may be one and indivisible, but what profits it while these things are? Federalists in the Senate, renegados in the army, traitors everywhere. France, all in desperate recruitment since the 10th of March, does not fly to the frontier, but only flies hither and thither. This defection of contemptuous diplomatic Dumouriez falls heavy on the fine-spoken, high-sniffing hommes d'etat whom we consorted with, forms a second epoch in their destinies. Or perhaps, more strictly, we might say the second Girondin epoch, though little noticed then, began on the day when, in reference to this defection, the Girondins broke with Danton. It was the 1st day of April. Dumouriez had not yet plunged across the morasses to Coburg, but was evidently meaning to do it, and our commissioners were off to arrest him, when what does the Girondin La Sauce see good to do but rise and Jesuitically question and insinuate at great length whether a main accomplice of Dumouriez had not probably been Danton. Gironde grins sardonic assent, Mountain holds its breath. The figure of Danton, Levasseur says, while this speech went on, was noteworthy. He sat erect with a kind of internal convulsion, struggling to keep itself motionless, his eye from time to time flashing wilder, his lip curling in titanic scorn. La Sauce, in a fine-spoken, attorney manner, proceeds. There is this probability to his mind, and there is that. Probabilities which press painfully on him, which cast the patriotism of Danton under a painful shade, which painful shade he, La Sauce, will hope that Danton may find it not impossible to dispel. "Les scélérats!" cries Danton, starting up with clenched right hand, La Sauce having done, and descends from the mountain like a lava flood, his answer not unready. La Sauce's probabilities fly like idle dust, but leave a result behind them. "Ye were right, friends of the mountain," begins Danton, "and I was wrong. There is no peace possible with these men. Let it be war then. They will not save the Republic with us. It shall be saved without them, saved in spite of them." Really a burst of rude parliamentary eloquence this, which is still worth reading in the old Moniteur. With firewords the exasperated, rude Titan rives and smites these Girondins. At every hit the glad mountain utters chorus. Marat, like a musical beast, repeating the last phrase. La Sauce's probabilities are gone, but Danton's pledge of battle remains lying. A third epoch, or scene in the Girondin drama, or rather it is but the completion of this second epoch, We reckon from the day when the patience of virtuous Pétion finally boiled over, and the Girondins, so to speak, took up this battle pledge of Danton's and decreed Marat accused. It was the 11th of the same month of April, on some effervescence rising such as often rose, and President had covered himself, mere bedlam now ruling, and Mountain and Gironde were rushing on one another with clenched right hands, and even with pistols in them, when behold, the Girondin Duperrey drew a sword. Shriek of horror rose, instantly quenching all other effervescence at sight of the clear murderous steel. Whereupon Duperrey returned it to the leather again, confessing that he did indeed draw it, being instigated by a kind of sacred madness, saint fureur, and pistols held at him, but that if he parricidally had chanced to scratch the utmost skin of national representation with it, he too carried pistols, and would have blown his brains out on the spot. But now, in such posture of affairs, virtuous Pétion rose next morning to lament these effervescences, this endless anarchy invading the legislative sanctuary itself, and here being growled at and howled at by the Mountain, his patience, long tried, did, as we say, boil over, and he spake vehemently, in high key, with foam on his lips. Whence, says Marat, I concluded he had got la rage, the rabidity, or dog madness. Rabidity smites others rabid, so there rises new foam-lipped demand to have anarchists extinguished, and specially to have Marat put under accusation. Send a representative to the Revolutionary Tribunal? Violate the inviolability of a representative? Have a care, O friends. This poor Marat has faults enough, but against liberty or equality what fault? That he has loved and fought for it, not wisely but too well? In dungeons and cellars, in pinching poverty, under anathema of men, even so in such fight has he grown so dingy, bleared, even so has his head become a Stylites one. Him you will fling to your sword of sharpness, while Coburg and Pitt advance on us, fire-spitting. The Mountain is loud, the Gironde is loud and deaf. All lips are foamy. With permanent session of 24 hours, with vote by roll call and a dead-lift effort, the Gironde carries it. Marat is ordered to the Revolutionary Tribunal to answer for that February paragraph of forestallers at the door-lintel with other offences, and, after a little hesitation, he obeys. Thus is Danton's battle pledge taken up. There is, as he said there would be, war without truce or treaty, ni trêve ni composition. Wherefore, close now with one another, formula and reality, in death grips, and wrestle it out. Both of you cannot live, but only one. End of Book 3, Chapter 7. The French Revolution, A History, by Thomas Carlyle, Volume 3, The Guillotine, Book 3, The Girondins, Chapter 8, In Death Grips. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Peter Dann. Book 3, Chapter 8, In Death Grips. It proves what strength, were it only of inertia, there is in established formulas, what weakness in nascent realities, and illustrates several things, that this death wrestle should still have lasted some 6 weeks or more. National business, discussion of the Constitutional Act, for our Constitution should decidedly be got ready, proceeds along with it. We even change our locality. We shift on the 10th of May from the old Salle de Manège into our new hall in the palace, once a king's but now the Republic's, of the Tuileries. Hope and ruth, flickering against despair and rage, still struggles in the minds of men. It is a most dark, confused death wrestle, this of the 6 weeks. Formalist frenzy against realist frenzy, patriotism, egoism, pride, anger, vanity, hope and despair, all raised to the frenetic pitch. Frenzy meets frenzy like dark clashing whirlwinds. Neither understands the other. The weaker one day will understand that it is very swept down. Girondism is strong as established formula and respectability. Do not as many as 72 of the departments, or say respectable heads of departments, declare for us? Calvados, which loves its bousé, will even rise in revolt, so hint the addresses. Marseille, cradle of patriotism, will rise. Bordeaux will rise, and the Gironde department as one man. In a word, who will not rise were our Représentation Nationale to be insulted, or one hair of a deputy's head harmed? The mountain, again, is strong as reality and audacity. To the reality of the mountain are not all furthersome things possible? A new 10th of August, if needful, nay, a new 2nd of September. But on Wednesday afternoon, 24th day of April, year 1793, what tumult as of fierce jubilee is this? It is Marat returning from revolutionary tribunal. A week or more of death peril, and now there is triumphant acquittal. Revolutionary tribunal can find no accusation against this man. And so the eye of history beholds patriotism, which had gloomed unutterable things all week, break into loud jubilee. Embrace its Marat, lift him into a chair of triumph, bear him shoulder high through the streets. Shoulder high is the injured people's friend, crowned with an oak garland, amid the wavy sea of red nightcaps, carmagnole jackets, grenadier bonnets, and female mob-caps, far sounding like a sea. The injured people's friend has here reached his culminating point. He too strikes the stars with his sublime head. But the reader can judge with what face President La Sauce, he of the painful probabilities who presides in this convention hall, might welcome such jubilee tide when it got thither, and the decreed of accusation floating on the top of it. A national sapper, spokesman on the occasion, says, "The people know their friend and love his life as their own. Whosoever wants Marat's head must get the sappers first." La Sauce answered with some vague, painful mumblement, which, says Levasseur, one could not help tittering at. Patriot sections, volunteers not yet gone to the frontiers, come demanding the purgation of traitors from your own bosom, the expulsion, or even the trial and sentence, of a factious 22. Nevertheless, the Gironde has got its commission of 12, a commission specially appointed for investigating these troubles of the legislative sanctuary. Let Sansculottism say what it will, law shall triumph. Old constituent Rabot Saint-Etienne presides over this commission. It is the last plank whereon a wrecked republic may perhaps still save herself. Rabot and they therefore sit intent, examining witnesses, launching arrestments, looking out into a waste dim sea of troubles, the womb of formula, or perhaps her grave. Enter not that sea, O reader. There are dim desolation and confusion, raging women and raging men. Sections come demanding 22, for the number first given by Section Bon Conseil still holds, though the name should even vary. Other sections of the wealthier kind come denouncing such demand. Nay, the same section will demand today and denounce the demand tomorrow, according as the wealthier sit or the poorer. Wherefore, indeed, the Girondins declare that all sections shall close at 10 in the evening before the working people come, which decree remains without effect. And nightly the mother of patriotism wails doleful, but her eye kindling. And Fournier, l'Américain, is busy, and the two banker frays, and Valet apostle of liberty, the bull voice of Marquis Saint-Rouge is heard. And shrill women vociferate from all galleries, the convention ones and downwards. Nay, a central committee of all the 48 sections looms forth, huge and dubious, sitting dim in the Archevêche, sending resolutions, receiving them, a centre of the sections, in dread deliberation as to a new 10th of August. One thing we will specify to throw light on many. The aspect under which, seen through the eyes of these Girondin 12, or even seen through one's own eyes, the patriotism of the softer sex presents itself. There are female patriots, whom the Girondins call Mégaires, and count to the extent of 8,000, with serpent hair all out of curl, who have changed the distaff for the dagger. They are of the society called brotherly, fraternelle, say sisterly, which meets under the roof of the Jacobins. 2,000 daggers or so have been ordered, doubtless for them. They rush to Versailles to raise more women, but the Versailles women will not rise. Nay, behold, in National Garden of Tuileries, Demoiselle Théroigne herself is become as brown-locked Diana, were that possible, attacked by her own dogs, or she-dogs. The demoiselle, keeping her carriage, is for liberty indeed, as she has full well shown, but then for liberty with respectability. Whereupon these serpent-haired extreme she-patriots do now fasten on her, tatter her, shamefully fustigate her in their shameful way, almost fling her into the garden ponds had not help intervened. Help, alas, to small purpose. The poor demoiselle's head and nervous system, none of the soundest, is so tattered and fluttered that it will never recover, but flutter worse and worse till it crack. And within year and day we hear of her in madhouse and strait waistcoat, which proves permanent. Such brown-locked figure did flutter and inarticulately jabber and gesticulate, little able to speak the obscure meaning it had through some segment of that 18th century of time. She disappears here from the Revolution and public history for evermore. Another thing we will not again specify, yet again beseech the reader to imagine, the reign of fraternity and perfection. Imagine, we say, O reader, that the millennium was struggling on the threshold, and yet not so much as groceries could be had, owing to traitors. With what impetus would a man strike traitors in that case? Ah, thou canst not imagine it. Thou hast thy groceries safe in the shops, and little or no hope of a millennium ever coming. But indeed, as to the temper there was in men and women, does not this one fact say enough? The height suspicion had risen to. Preternatural, we often called it, seemingly in the language of exaggeration, but listen to the cold deposition of witnesses. Not a musical patriot can blow himself a snatch of melody from the French horn, sitting mildly pensive on the housetop, but Mercier will recognize it to be a signal which one plotting committee is making to another. Distraction has possessed harmony herself, lurks in the sound of Marseillaise and Ça ira. Louvet, who can see as deep into a millstone as the most, discerns that we shall be invited back to our old hall of the Manège by a deputation, and then the anarchists will massacre 22 of us as we walk over. It is Pitt and Coburg, the gold of Pitt. Poor Pitt! They little know what work he has with his own friends of the people, getting them bespied, beheaded, their habeas corpuses suspended, and his own social order and strong boxes kept tight, to fancy him raising mobs among his neighbours. But the strangest fact connected with French, or indeed with human suspicion, is perhaps this of Camille Desmoulins. Camille's head, one of the clearest in France, has got itself so saturated through every fibre with preternaturalism of suspicion that, looking back on that 12th of July 1789, when the thousands rose round him, yelling responsive at his word in the Palais Royal garden, and took cockades, he finds it explicable only on this hypothesis, that they were all hired to do it, and set on by the foreign and other plotters. It was not for nothing, says Camille, with insight, that this multitude burst up round me when I spoke. No, not for nothing. Behind, around, before, it is one huge preternatural puppet play of plots, Pitt pulling the wires. Almost I conjecture that I, Camille, myself am a plot and wooden with wires. The force of insight could no further go. Be this as it will, history remarks that the Commission of 12, now clear enough as to the plots, and luckily having got the threads of them all by the end, as they say, are launching mandates of arrest rapidly in these May days, and carrying matters with a high hand, resolute that the sea of troubles shall be restrained. What chief patriot, section president even, is safe? They can arrest him, tear him from his warm bed, because he has made irregular section arrestments. They arrest Valet, Apostle of Liberty. They arrest Procureur Substitute Hébert, Père Duchesne, a magistrate of the people sitting in Town Hall, who with high solemnity of martyrdom takes leave of his colleagues, Prompt he to obey the law, and solemnly acquiescent disappears into prison. The swifter fly the sections, energetically demanding him back, demanding not arrestment of popular magistrates, but of a traitorous 22. Section comes flying after section, defiling energetic with their Cambyses vein of oratory. Nay, the commune itself comes, with Mayor Pache at its head, and with question not of Hébert and the 22 alone, but with this ominous old question made new. Can you save the Republic, or must we do it? To whom President Max Inard makes fiery answer. If by fatal chance, in any of those tumults which since the 10th of March are ever returning, Paris were to lift a sacrilegious finger against the national representation, France would rise as one man in never-imagined vengeance, and shortly the traveller would ask on which side of the Seine Paris had stood. Whereat the mountain bellows only louder, and every gallery, patriot Paris boiling round. And Girondin Valazé has nightly conclaves at his house, sends billets, come punctually and well armed, for there is to be business. And Megara women perambulate the streets with flags, with lamentable Alleluia, and the convention doors are obstructed by roaring multitudes. Fine-spoken hommes d'état are hustled, maltreated as they pass. Marat will apostrophize you in such death-peril and say, "Thou too art of them." If Roland asks leave to quit Paris, there is order of the day. What help? Substitute Hébert, Apostle Varlet must be given back, to be crowned with oak garlands. The Commission of 12 in a convention overwhelmed with roaring sections is broken. Then on the morrow, in a convention of rallied Girondins, is reinstated. Dim chaos, or the sea of troubles, is struggling through all its elements, writhing and chafing towards some creation. End of Book 3, Chapter 8. The French Revolution, A History, by Thomas Carlyle, Volume 3, The Guillotine, Book 3, The Girondins, Chapter 9, Extinct. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain, read by Peter Dann. Book 3, Chapter 9, Extinct. Accordingly, on Friday, the 31st of May, 1793, there comes forth into the summer sunlight one of the strangest scenes. Mayor Pache, with municipality, arrives at the Tuileries Hall of Convention, sent for, Paris being in visible ferment, and gives the strangest news. How, in the grey of this morning, while we sat permanent in Town Hall, watchful for the commonweal, there entered, precisely as on the 10th of August, some 96 extraneous persons, who declared themselves to be in a state of insurrection, to be plenipotentiary commissioners from the 48 sections or members of the sovereign people, all in a state of insurrection, and further that we, in the name of said sovereign insurrection, were dismissed from office. How we thereupon laid off our sashes and withdrew into the adjacent saloon of Liberty. How in a moment or two we were called back and reinstated, the sovereign pleasing to think us still worthy of confidence. Whereby, having taken new oath of office, we on a sudden find ourselves insurrectionary magistrates, with extraneous committee of 96 sitting by us, and a citoyen Henriot, one of whom some accuse of Septemberism, is made generalissimo of the National Guard, and since 6 o'clock the tocsins ring and the drums beat. Under which peculiar circumstances, what would an august National Convention please to direct us to do? Yes, there's the question. Break the insurrectionary authorities, answers some with vehemence. Vergniaud at least will have the national representatives all die at their post. This is sworn to with ready loud acclaim. But as to breaking the insurrectionary authorities, alas, while we yet debate, what sound is that? Sound of the alarm cannon on the Pont Neuf, which it is death by the law to fire without order from us. It does boom off there, nevertheless, sending a sound through all hearts. And the tocsins discourse stern music, and Henriot with his armed force has enveloped us, and section succeeds section the lifelong day, demanding with Cambyses' oratory, with a rattle of muskets, that traitors 22 or more be punished, that the commission of 12 be irrecoverably broken. The heart of the Gironde dies within it. Distant are the 72 respectable departments. This fiery municipality is near. Barrère is for a middle course, granting something. The Commission of 12 declares that, not waiting to be broken, it hereby breaks itself and is no more. Fain would Reporter Rabot speak his and its last words, but he is bellowed off. Too happy that the 22 are still left unviolated, Vergniaud, carrying the laws of refinement to a great length, moves, to the amazement of some, that the sections of Paris have deserved well of their country. Whereupon, at a late hour of the evening, the deserving sections retire to their respective places of abode. Barrère shall report on it. With busy quill and brain he sits, secluded. For him no sleep to-night. Friday the last of May has ended in this manner. The sections have deserved well, but ought they not to deserve better? Faction and Girondism is struck down for the moment, and consents to be a nullity. But will it not at another favourabler moment rise, still feller, and the Republic have to be saved in spite of it? So reasons patriotism, still permanent. So reasons the figure of Marat, visible in the dim section world on the morrow. To the conviction of men. And so at eventide of Saturday, when Barrère had just got it all varnished in the course of the day, and his report was setting off in the evening mail-bags, tocsin peals out again. General is beating, armed men taking station in the Place Vendôme and elsewhere for the night, supplied with provisions and liquor. There, under the summer stars, will they wait, this night, what is to be seen and to be done, Henriot and Town Hall giving due signal. The convention, at sound of General, hastens back to its hall, but to the number only of 100, and does little business, puts off business till the morrow. The Girondins do not stir out thither. The Girondins are abroad seeking beds. Poor Rabot, on the morrow morning, returning to his post with Louvet and some others, through streets all in ferment, wrings his hands, ejaculating, "Illa suprema dies!" It has become Sunday, the 2nd day of June, year 1793 by the old style, by the new style, year 1 of liberty, equality, fraternity. We have got to the last scene of all that ends this history of the Girondin senatorship. It seems doubtful whether any terrestrial convention had ever met in such circumstances as this national one now does. Tocsin is pealing, barriers shut, all Paris is on the gaze, or under arms. As many as 100,000 under arms they count, national force and the armed volunteers who should have flown to the frontiers in La Vendée, but would not, treason being unpunished, and only flew hither and thither. So many, steady under arms, environ the national Tuileries and garden. There are horse, foot, artillery, sappers with beards. The artillery one can see with their camp furnaces in this national garden, heating bullets red, and their match is lighted. Henriot in plumes rides amidst a plumed staff. All posts and issues are safe. Reserves lie out as far as the wood of Boulogne, the choicest patriots nearest the scene. One other circumstance we will note, that a careful municipality, liberal of camp furnaces, has not forgotten provision cards. No member of the sovereign need now go home to dinner, but can keep rank, plentiful victual circulating unsought. Does not this people understand insurrection? Ye not uninventive gouaches. Therefore, let a national representation, mandatories of the sovereign, take thought of it. Expulsion of your 22 and your commission of 12, we stand here till it be done. Deputation after deputation, in ever stronger language, comes with that message. Barrère proposes a middle course. Will not perhaps the inculpated deputies consent to withdraw voluntarily, to make a generous demission and self-sacrifice for the sake of one's country? Ina, repentant of that search on which river-bank Paris stood, declares himself ready to demit. Ready also is Tedium Face, old Dessau of the Bastille, vieux radateur, old dotard, as Marat calls him, is still readier. On the contrary, Lanjuinet the Breton declares that there is one man who never will demit voluntarily, but will protest to the uttermost while a voice is left him. And he accordingly goes on protesting, amid rage and clangor, Legendre crying at last, Lanjuinet, come down from the tribune, or I will fling thee down, ou je te jette en bas. For matters are come to extremity. Nay, they do clutch hold of Lanjuinet, certain zealous mountain men, but cannot fling him down, for he cramps himself on the railing, and his clothes get torn. Brave senator, worthy of pity. Neither will Barbaroux demit. He has sworn to die at his post, and will keep that oath. Whereupon the galleries all rise with explosion, brandishing weapons some of them, and rush out saying, Allons then, we must save our country. Such a session as this of Sunday, the 2nd of June. Churches fill over Christian Europe and then empty themselves, but this convention empties not the while. A day of shrieking contention, of agony, humiliation, and tearing of coat-skirts, illa suprema dies. Round stand Henriot and his 100,000, copiously refreshed from tray and basket. Nay, he is distributing 5 francs apiece. We Girondins saw it with our eyes. 5 francs to keep them in heart. And distraction of armed riot encumbers our borders, jangles at our bar. We are prisoners in our own hall. Bishop Gregoire could not get out for a besoin actuel without 4 gendarmes to wait on him. What is the character of a national representative become? And now the sunlight falls yellower on western windows, and the chimney-tops are flinging longer shadows. The refreshed 100,000, nor their shadows, stir not. What to resolve on? Motion rises superfluous, one would think, that the convention go forth in a body, ascertain with its own eyes whether it is free or not. Lo, therefore, from the eastern gate of the Tuileries a distressed convention issuing, handsome Hérault Seychelles at their head, he with hat on in sign of public calamity, the rest bareheaded, towards the gate of the Carrousel, wondrous to see, towards Henriot and his plumed staff. In the name of the National Convention, make way. Not an inch of the way does Henriot make. I receive no orders till the sovereign, yours and mine, has been obeyed. The convention presses on. Henriot prances back with his staff, some 15 paces. To arms! Cannoneers, to your guns! Flashes out his puissant sword, as the staff all do, and the hussars all do. Cannoneers brandish the lit match. Infantry present arms, alas, in the level way, as if for firing. Hatted Hérault leads his distressed flock through their pinfold of a Tuileries again, across the garden to the gate on the opposite side. Here is Foyon's terrace. Alas, there is our salle de manège, but neither at this gate of the Pont Tournant is there egress. Try the other, and the other. No egress. We wander, disconsolate, through armed ranks, who indeed salute with Live the Republic, but also with Die the Gironde. Other such sight in the year 1 of liberty the westering sun never saw. And now, behold, Marat meets us, for he lagged in this suppliant procession of ours. He has got some 100 elect patriots at his heels. He orders us, in the sovereign's name, to return to our place and do as we are bidden and bound. The convention returns. Does not the convention, says Couthon, with a singular power of face, see that it is free? None but friends round it? The convention, overflowing with friends and armed sectioneers, proceeds to vote as bidden. Many will not vote, but remain silent. Some 1 or 2 protest in words. The mountain has a clear unanimity. Commission of 12 and the denounced 22, to whom we add ex-ministers Clavière and Lebrun. These, with some slight extempore alterations, this or that orator proposing, but Marat disposing, are voted to be under arrestment in their own houses. Brissot, Buzot, Vergniaud, Guadet, Louvet, Gensonnet, Barbaroux, Lassauce, Linguinet, Rabot, 32 by the tale, all that we have known as Girondins and more than we have known. They, under the safeguard of the French people, by and by under the safeguard of 2 gendarmes each, shall dwell peaceably in their own houses as non-senators till further order. Herewith ends Séance of Sunday the 2nd of June, 1793. At 10 o'clock, under mild stars, the 100,000, their work well finished, turn homewards. This same day, Central Insurrection Committee has arrested Madame Roland, imprisoned her in the Abbaye. Roland has fled, no one knows whither. Thus fell the Girondins by insurrection, and became extinct as a party, not without a sigh from most historians. The men were men of parts, of philosophic culture, decent behaviour, not condemnable in that they were pedants and had not better parts, not condemnable but most unfortunate. They wanted a republic of the virtues wherein themselves should be head, and they could only get a republic of the strengths wherein others than they were head. For the rest, Barrère shall make report of it. The night concludes with a civic promenade by torchlight. Surely the true reign of fraternity is now not far? End of Book 3, Chapter 9.